The rancher had lived alone in a ghost town for years, until an Apache woman arrived seeking shelter. The rancher had chosen a life that very few people would ever understand. Years earlier, when the small town near his land began to lose people, shops, and families, he did not follow the others. While most packed their belongings and moved toward growing cities, he stayed behind. He watched as neighbors left one by one, their houses closing up, their windows dark, and their voices disappearing from the dusty streets. Over time, the place slowly became a ghost town. For many, it felt sad and empty. For him, it felt quiet. And in that quiet, he found a strange kind of peace. He lived in an old ranch house at the edge of what used to be the town. The house was not new or fancy. Its wooden walls had marks from many years of wind and sun. The roof had been repaired many times with his own hands. The porch creaked when he stepped on it, but he liked that sound. It reminded him that the house was alive in its own way, even if most of the town was not. Every morning he woke up before sunrise, when the sky was still pale and cool. He liked that time best because the world felt calm and honest before heat and dust took over. His days followed a simple pattern. He fed his cattle, checked their water, and made sure none had wandered too far. He walked long distances along his fences, looking for broken posts or loose wire. Sometimes the wind would knock things down, and sometimes wild animals would push through. He carried his tools with him, fixing problems as he found them. He did not rush. There was no one waiting on him, no boss, no clock on a wall telling him what to do. The land and the animals decided his schedule, and he accepted that. The ghost town itself was a strange sight. Old buildings stood quietly, their paint faded and their signs hard to read. There was a small store that had once sold food and supplies. Its windows were broken now, and dust covered the shelves inside. There was a schoolhouse with a bell that no longer rang. The doors were locked and weeds grew tall around its steps. The rancher passed these places often when he rode into town on his horse or walked through on foot. He did not go inside much. He respected the past and left it alone. In his mind, those buildings were like memories. You could look at them, but you should not try to live in them again. People often wondered why he stayed. Long ago, he had his reasons, though he did not share them easily. He had lost people he cared about. He had seen promises broken and dreams fall apart. The noise of crowded places reminded him of things he wanted to forget. Out here in the wide open land, he felt less pressure. The land did not judge him. The wind did not ask questions. The cattle did not care about his past. They only cared that he showed up, that he fed them, and that he protected them. That was simple. That made sense to him. At night, when the sun went down and the sky turned deep blue and black, the town felt even more empty. The stars looked brighter without city lights. The rancher often sat on his porch with a cup of coffee or tea, listening to the sounds of the land. Coyotes howled in the distance. The wind moved through dry grass. Sometimes an owl called from somewhere nearby. These sounds became his company. He did not feel afraid. He felt watchful, aware, and steady. He had learned to trust his instincts over the years. Living alone had made him strong in quiet ways. There were times when loneliness tried to reach him. It came in small moments. When he cooked a meal and realized there was no one to share it with. When he fixed something difficult and had no one to tell about it. When he saw an old photograph and remembered a voice he had not heard in years. But he pushed those feelings down gently. He told himself that this was the life he chose. He reminded himself that staying alone was better than opening old wounds. The ghost town became a shield, a place where the past could not easily follow him. He kept his ranch running with care and pride. Every fence post he replaced, every roof leak he fixed, every animal he saved from illness made him feel useful. The land responded to his effort. The grass grew where he cleared rocks. The cattle stayed healthy because he watched them closely. Even though the town around him had faded, his small world stayed alive. That gave him a sense of purpose. He was not just surviving. He was maintaining something, keeping a small piece of life moving forward in a place most people had forgotten. Sometimes travelers passed by on the old road. Not many, but once in a while, a truck or a rider would appear in the distance. They usually did not stop. The ghost town had a reputation for being empty and unwelcoming. The rancher did not mind. He had learned not to expect visitors. In fact, unexpected company made him uneasy. He preferred to know his surroundings, to control what he could. A stranger meant questions, stories, and attention. He was not sure he wanted any of that. Still, even he could not fully escape the feeling that something was missing. There were moments when he stood on a hill and looked over the land, watching the sun rise or set, and felt a quiet ache in his chest. It was not sharp pain. It was more like a reminder that humans were not meant to be completely alone forever. He did not talk about this feeling. He did not even fully admit it to himself. He simply noticed it and then went back to work. The rancher had built a routine that protected him. Routine gave him safety. Wake up, work, eat, rest, repeat. The days blended together, but he did not mind. He liked knowing what to expect. Jealous and dishonor. The ghost town did not change much, and neither did he. That was how he wanted it, or at least that was what he told himself. He believed that nothing unexpected would ever happen there again. The town had already seen its biggest changes when people left. The land had settled into a quiet, forgotten state. He thought his life would continue the same way until he was too old to work. And even then, he imagined himself still sitting on that porch, watching the sky, listening to the wind, and living out his days in silence. He did not know that the quiet he depended on was about to be broken. He did not know that his carefully protected world was about to change in a way he never planned for. For now, though, he simply went on with his life, believing that the ghost town and his lonely ranch were permanent, unchanging, and safe from surprises. In his mind, the story of this place had already been written. He did not yet understand that a new chapter was slowly making its way toward him. The sun was already low in the sky when the rancher finished his work for the day. The light had turned soft and golden, stretching long shadows across the dry ground. He closed the gate to his cattle pen, checked the lock twice out of habit, and slowly walked back toward his house. His body felt tired in a familiar way, the kind of tired that came from honest work. He welcomed it. It helped him sleep at night and kept his mind quiet. As he reached his porch, he paused for a moment, listening. The land was usually very still at this hour. The wind moved gently through the grass, and far away he could hear birds settling down for the night. Everything felt normal. He set his tools near the door and was about to step inside when something caught his attention. It was a small movement near the old road that led into town. At first, he thought it might be a deer or a stray animal searching for water. He shaded his eyes and looked again. The shape was too tall to be an animal. It moved slowly and carefully, like someone who was very tired. His first reaction was caution. No one came this way unless they had a reason. The rancher stood still, watching. The figure came closer, step by step, until he could see that it was a woman. Her clothes were dusty, and her posture showed that she had been walking for a long time. She carried a small bundle and nothing more. His heart beat a little faster. He was not used to surprises. A stranger at this time of day made him uneasy, but he did not reach for anything or hide. He reminded himself to stay calm. The woman stopped a short distance from the house, as if unsure whether to come closer. She looked around, taking in the quiet ranch, the empty land, and the old house. For a moment, they both just stood there, studying each other from a distance. The rancher finally stepped forward onto the porch so she could see him clearly. He did not want to scare her by staying hidden. He raised one hand slightly, not as a wave, but as a sign that he had seen her. The woman hesitated, then slowly walked toward the porch. Her steps were careful, and her eyes stayed alert. It was clear she had learned to be cautious on her journey. When she reached the bottom of the porch steps, she stopped. Her voice, when she spoke, was quiet but steady. She greeted him respectfully and explained that she had been traveling for days. She said she was tired, thirsty, and in need of a safe place to rest for the night. She did not give many details, but her face showed true exhaustion. The rancher could see it in her eyes, in the way her shoulders sagged, and in the slow way she breathed. For a moment, he did not answer. His mind was busy. He thought about the years he had spent alone. He thought about how rare it was for someone to appear at his door. He also thought about the risks. Trust was not something he gave easily, but he also remembered what it felt like to be in need, to be far from help, and to hope that someone would show kindness. He stepped aside and opened the door wider. He did not say much at first. He simply nodded and invited her to come up onto the porch. He offered her a cup of water before anything else. She accepted it with both hands and drank slowly, as if she did not want to waste a single drop. The rancher watched quietly, noticing how careful and polite she was. She thanked him more than once, her voice full of real gratitude. Inside the house, the air was cooler. The rancher's home was simple but clean. A small table stood near the window. A few chairs were pushed against the wall. Shelves held jars of food, tools, and everyday items. There was no luxury, but everything had a place. The woman looked around, not with curiosity, but with the careful eyes of someone who respected other people's space. He offered her some simple food. Nothing special, just what he usually ate himself. She accepted, again with thanks, and ate slowly. It was clear she had not had a full meal in some time. As she ate, the rancher sat across from her, keeping a respectful distance. He did not ask too many questions. He did not want to make her uncomfortable. Still, he wanted to understand who she was and why she was here. She told him that she came from Apache lands and had been moving from place to place. She did not go into deep detail, but she explained that she could not stay where she was before. There had been trouble, and she needed time and space to think and to find a safer path forward. Her words were careful, but her meaning was clear. She was not just tired from walking. She was tired from carrying heavy worries. The rancher listened without interrupting. He had learned over the years that sometimes people needed to speak in their own time. He nodded when she spoke and kept his tone calm when he answered. He told her that visitors were rare and that he lived alone. He did not share his full story, but he said enough for her to understand that this place was quiet and far from most people. As the sky outside grew darker, the house felt smaller and more personal. The lamp on the table gave off a soft light. Shadows moved gently on the walls. The rancher felt a strange mix of feelings. Part of him was alert, still aware that he did not fully know this woman. Another part of him felt something he had not felt in a long time, the simple presence of another human being in his home. He showed her a small room where she could rest, It was not fancy, but it was clean and had a bed and a blanket. He made sure she knew where the water was and told her she could rest as long as she needed for the night. She thanked him again, this time with emotion in her voice. Her eyes showed relief. For the first time since she had arrived, her shoulders relaxed. When she went to the room, the rancher sat alone in the main area of the house. He listened to the quiet sounds of the night and the soft movement from the other room. He realized how different the house felt with someone else inside. It was not bad. It was just different. The silence was no longer empty. It was shared. He stayed awake for a while, thinking. He wondered where she had come from and what she had faced. He wondered why she had ended up at his ranch, in this forgotten place. He also wondered what this meant for his carefully planned life of isolation. He had always believed that no one would truly enter his world again. Now, in a single evening, that belief had been challenged. Outside, the ghost town remained still and dark, just as it always had. But inside the ranch house, something had changed. A stranger had crossed his path, and with her arrival, the quiet order of his life had been gently disturbed. He did not yet know if this change would be temporary or lasting. All he knew was that the night felt different, and the story he thought was finished might only be beginning to turn in a new direction. The next morning, the rancher woke up before sunrise, as he always did. For a few seconds, he forgot that someone else was in the house. Then he heard a soft sound from the other room, a small movement that reminded him he was no longer alone. The thought felt strange, but not unpleasant. He sat up on his bed and took a deep breath, listening to the quiet morning. The world outside was calm, painted in soft gray and blue light. He quietly got dressed and started his usual routine. He did not want to wake the woman too early, but he also did not want to act as if she was not there. He made coffee and put some simple food on the table. The smell slowly filled the small house. After a while, he heard footsteps. The woman appeared in the doorway, looking rested but still careful, as if she did not want to disturb him. They greeted each other politely. There was a short moment of silence, the kind that comes when two people are still learning how to be around each other. Then he invited her to sit and eat. She accepted and thanked him again. As they shared breakfast, the light from the rising sun came through the window, making the room feel warmer and more open. At first, their conversation stayed simple. He asked if she had slept well. She said she had, and that it was the first good rest she had in many days. He told her she was welcome to take her time waking up, and that there was no rush. Slowly, as they ate, the quiet between them began to feel less heavy. It became easier to speak. The woman shared small pieces of her story. She talked about growing up, learning to respect the land, to read the signs of weather, and to understand how nature could guide a person. She spoke about traveling long distances and how the road could teach patience and strength. She did not speak in a dramatic way. Her words were calm, but they carried weight. It was clear that her life had not been easy, but she did not complain. She simply told the truth of what she had lived. The rancher listened carefully. He found himself interested in her way of seeing the world. It was different from his, yet there were similarities. She talked about listening to the land, and he realized that he did the same. Even if he never described it that way, he paid attention to the grass, the sky, and the animals, just as she did. In that way, they were not as different as he first thought. After breakfast, he told her he needed to check on the cattle and walk the fence line. He did not expect her to come, but she asked if she could join him. He was surprised, but he agreed. They walked together across the dry ground, the morning sun now higher in the sky. The woman moved with quiet confidence. She watched the land carefully, pointing out small signs that he usually overlooked, like animal tracks and changes in the soil. As they walked, their conversation grew more natural. The rancher shared parts of his own past, though he did not go into deep detail. He talked about how the town used to be full of people and how it slowly emptied. He spoke about choosing to stay when others left. He did not explain all his reasons, but he admitted that he found peace in the quiet, even if it sometimes felt heavy. The woman listened with respect. She did not judge his choices. Instead, she said she understood why someone might want distance from crowded places and painful memories. Her words were gentle, and the rancher felt something shift inside him. It had been a long time since someone had truly listened to him without trying to fix him or change his mind. When they reached a broken section of fence, the rancher stopped to repair it. The woman offered to help. She held tools, steadying posts, and worked with focus. The rancher noticed that she was not afraid of hard work. She did not complain or act unsure. She simply did what needed to be done. Working side by side, they did not need many words. The simple act of sharing the task created a quiet connection between them. As the day went on, they returned to the house for water and rest. Sitting in the shade, they continued to talk. This time, the woman shared a little more about why she had left her previous home. She spoke carefully, choosing her words. There had been conflict, misunderstandings, and situations that made her feel unsafe. She did not blame anyone directly. She only said that she needed space to think and to find a better path for herself. The rancher respected her choice not to share everything. He knew from his own life that some stories were too heavy to tell all at once. He told her that she did not owe him any explanations. If she needed a place to rest for a while, she could stay. His words surprised even him. He had never offered such an open invitation to anyone before. The woman looked at him for a long moment. In her eyes, he could see both caution and hope. She thanked him and said she would not take advantage of his kindness. She only needed time to decide what her next step would be. The rancher nodded. He understood that feeling very well. Over the next few days, they slowly built a rhythm together. She helped with small tasks around the ranch. She gathered herbs, helped prepare meals, and even showed him better ways to store certain foods. The rancher showed her how he cared for the cattle and how he repaired equipment. Each day they learned something from each other. Their conversations grew deeper. They talked about loss, about starting over, and about how people change when life does not go as planned. The rancher found himself opening up more than he expected. He spoke about the people he had lost and the mistakes he felt he had made. He did not hide his regrets. The woman listened with patience and understanding. She did not try to give easy answers. She simply stayed present. In return, she shared more of her own feelings. She spoke about the pressure she had felt, the expectations placed on her, and the strength it took to walk away from a familiar life. She admitted that sometimes she felt afraid, but she also felt proud of herself for choosing her own path. The rancher admired her courage. He realized that coming to his ranch was not just an accident. It was part of her journey to take control of her life. The ghost town, which had once felt cold and empty, now seemed different. With two people moving through it, sharing work and conversation, it felt less like a place of endings and more like a place of pause and reflection. The rancher noticed small changes in himself. He laughed more. He paid more attention to the small joys of the day. He even found himself looking forward to shared meals and talks in the evening. Trust did not appear all at once. It grew slowly, built on simple actions and honest words. Each day they proved to each other that they were respectful, careful, and sincere. The rancher began to realize that living alone for so long had made him forget how healing simple human connection could be. By the end of that week, both of them felt that something important was happening. They were not just sharing space, they were sharing stories, strength, and understanding. They did not know what the future would bring, but they both felt that this meeting was not meaningless. It was changing them, little by little. In the quiet of the evenings, as they sat on the porch watching the sky, the rancher felt something he had not felt in years, a sense that he was not completely alone in the world anymore. And the woman felt something just as powerful, a sense that she had finally found a place where she could breathe, think, and begin to heal. As more days passed, the ranch slowly began to feel different. The woman was no longer just a guest who had arrived tired and in need of rest. She became part of the daily rhythm of the place. The rancher noticed this change in small, quiet ways. The house no longer felt as empty in the mornings. There were now 2 cups on the table instead of 1. There were 2 sets of footsteps moving across the floor. These simple signs made the ranch feel more alive. The woman woke up early, just like the rancher. Sometimes she was already outside when he stepped out of the house, watching the sky or walking slowly across the land. She said the early morning helped her clear her thoughts. The rancher understood that feeling. They often started their days with a few quiet words, sharing coffee and watching the sunrise. These moments were calm and peaceful, and they helped both of them feel grounded. She continued to help with work around the ranch. She was careful, respectful, and eager to learn. The rancher showed her how to check the cattle, how to tell if one was sick, and how to repair simple equipment. She listened closely and remembered what he taught her. In return, she shared her own knowledge. She showed him plants that could be used for small problems, and ways to store food that would last longer. The rancher was surprised by how useful her skills were. He realized that she brought more than just company. She brought new ways of thinking and working. The ghost town itself also seemed to change in their eyes. Walking through it together felt different than walking through it alone. The old buildings no longer felt only like reminders of loss. They became quiet places where 2 people could talk, reflect, and imagine what life had once been like there. Sometimes they stood near the old schoolhouse or the empty store and spoke about the families who must have lived there. They imagined children running in the streets and neighbors talking on porches. These conversations gave the town a sense of history instead of only emptiness. The rancher noticed that he was beginning to care about things he had ignored before. He started fixing small things in town, not because he needed to, but because he wanted the place to look better. He repaired a broken step near one building. He cleared weeds from a path they walked often. The woman noticed this and smiled. She said it felt like he was giving the town a second chance, even if only in small ways. The rancher had never thought of it like that before, but he liked the idea. Trust between them grew stronger each day. They no longer felt the need to be careful with every word. They joked sometimes. They shared stories from their childhoods. The rancher told her about simple memories, like helping his family on their land when he was young and learning how to work with his hands. The woman shared stories about learning from elders and being taught to respect both people and nature. These stories helped them understand each other on a deeper level. There were also moments of silence, but these silences were different from the lonely silence the rancher had known before. These were comfortable silences, where both people could sit together without feeling the need to speak. They could watch the clouds, listen to the wind, or simply rest. The rancher realized that this kind of silence felt full, not empty. The woman began to feel safer as well. At first, she had been careful, always ready to leave if needed. Now, she allowed herself to relax more. She slept better, she laughed more easily, She spent time outside without always watching over her shoulder. The rancher noticed these changes and felt glad that his ranch could offer her this sense of calm. He did not see himself as a hero or a savior. He simply saw himself as someone offering a place to rest, and that felt right to him. One afternoon, as they worked on repairing a section of fence together, a sudden storm appeared in the distance. Dark clouds moved quickly, and the wind picked up. The rancher and the woman worked faster, trying to finish before the rain reached them. When the first drops fell, they laughed and ran back toward the house. They arrived wet and out of breath, but smiling. It was a simple moment, but it stayed with them. It reminded them that even hard days could have light moments. That evening, as rain fell on the roof, they sat inside and talked for a long time. The woman spoke more openly about her fears and hopes. She said she did not want to keep running forever. She wanted to find a place where she could build something steady, something real. The rancher listened and felt a deep understanding. He knew what it was like to want a place to belong, even if he had told himself for years that he did not need one. He shared his own fears too. He admitted that living alone had protected him, but it had also made him closed off. He said he was afraid of getting hurt again, of trusting someone and losing them. The woman did not push him to change. She simply said that fear was natural, but it should not be the only thing guiding a person's choices. Her words were gentle, not demanding. Over time, the rancher started to see his life in a new way. He realized that his routine, while safe, had also kept him from growing. The presence of another person made him think differently. He found himself planning ahead more. He thought about improving the house, making repairs he had put off for years. He even thought about planting more crops and expanding his work. These thoughts surprised him, but they also made him feel hopeful. The woman, too, began to think more clearly about her future. The ranch gave her space to breathe and to reflect. She spent time walking alone, thinking about her next steps. But she always came back with a calmer expression, as if the land itself was helping her sort through her thoughts. The rancher respected her need for this space. He did not try to control her choices. He only offered support. The ghost town, once a symbol of endings, was slowly becoming a place of quiet rebuilding, not in a loud or dramatic way, but in small, meaningful steps. Two people, sharing work, sharing stories, and sharing silence, were bringing a sense of life back into a forgotten place. The rancher could feel it. The land felt different. The house felt warmer. Even the long evenings felt shorter. By this time, it was clear to both of them that this was no longer just a short visit. Something deeper was forming. They did not name it or rush it. They simply allowed it to grow naturally. They understood that trust and connection took time, and they were willing to give it that time. The rancher looked around his land one evening, watching the sun sink behind the hills. He realized that the ghost town no longer felt like a place where time had stopped. Instead, it felt like a place where something new was quietly beginning. And for the first time in many years, that thought did not scare him. It gave him a sense of calm hope. As the weeks turned into months, both the rancher and the woman began to understand that their lives had truly changed. What started as a simple request for shelter had slowly become something much deeper. The ranch was no longer just a place to survive. It had become a place to grow, to heal, and to imagine a future that neither of them had planned before. The rancher noticed changes in himself first. He felt more energy in the mornings. He no longer woke up with the heavy feeling that had followed him for years. Instead, he felt a quiet sense of purpose. There was still hard work to do, but now that work felt shared, even when they were not doing it side by side. Knowing that someone else cared about the land and the home made every task feel more meaningful. The woman also changed in small but important ways. Her movements became lighter. Her face, once marked by constant worry, now showed more calm. She smiled more often, not because everything was perfect, but because she felt safer and more hopeful. She spoke about her future with more confidence. Instead of only talking about what she had left behind, she began to talk about what she wanted to build. Together, they started making small plans. They talked about improving the house, fixing old rooms, and making the space more comfortable. The rancher showed her areas of land where they could plant more crops. She shared ideas for using water more carefully and protecting food for the colder seasons. These were not big, dramatic plans. They were simple, practical ideas. But to both of them, they meant something much bigger. They meant they were thinking about tomorrow, not just about getting through today. The ghost town also continued to change, at least in the way they saw it. The empty buildings no longer felt only like reminders of loss. They became places full of stories. Sometimes they cleaned small areas, clearing dust and debris, not to rebuild the town fully, but to show respect for what had once been there. These small actions made them feel connected to the past and hopeful for the future at the same time. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, the woman spoke about a choice she had been thinking about. She said she did not want to keep moving from place to place. She wanted to stop running and start building a steady life. She said that the ranch felt like a place where that might be possible. She did not say this with pressure or expectation. She simply shared her truth. The rancher listened quietly. His heart felt heavy and light at the same time. Heavy, because he knew that choosing to let someone truly stay in his life meant opening himself to possible pain. Light, because he also knew how much better his life had become since she arrived. He told her honestly that he had grown used to being alone, but that he no longer wanted to be alone in the same way. He admitted that her presence had made him realize how much he had been missing. They agreed to move forward slowly and carefully. There was no rush, no big promises. They both understood that trust was something built over time, not something declared in one moment. What mattered most was that they were willing to try, willing to support each other, and willing to face the future together in whatever way felt right. As seasons changed, the ranch showed signs of new life. More crops grew. The land looked healthier. The house felt warmer and more lived in. The rancher found joy in small things again, like sharing a meal, fixing something together, or simply sitting in silence with someone who understood him. The woman found strength in knowing that she had a place where she was respected and valued. There were still challenges. Life on a ranch was never easy. Weather, animals, and unexpected problems tested them. But now, they faced these challenges together. When one felt tired or unsure, the other offered support. This shared strength made both of them more confident. They realized that they were stronger together than they had ever been alone. The rancher also began to think differently about the ghost town. He no longer saw it as a place where life had ended. He saw it as a place that had simply been waiting for someone to care again, waiting for small signs of hope. In a quiet way, he felt proud that his land and his home had become a place of new beginnings, not just for himself, but for someone else too. The woman, in turn, felt a deep sense of gratitude. She knew that not every journey ended in a place of safety and understanding. She respected the rancher for opening his life to her, even when it was not easy for him. She made it clear that she did not take his kindness for granted. She worked hard, showed respect, and treated the ranch as her own responsibility, not just a temporary stop. Over time, their bond became stronger, built on shared experiences rather than big words. They learned each other's habits, strengths, and weaknesses. They accepted that neither of them was perfect. What mattered was that they were honest, patient, and willing to grow. The ghost town, once silent and forgotten, now held a quiet kind of life again. Not because many people returned, but because two people chose to stay, to care, and to build something meaningful. The rancher could look out over his land and feel something he had not felt in years, a sense of belonging that came not just from the land, but from the connection he had built. In the end, what began as a simple meeting between two strangers became a turning point for both of them. The rancher found that his long years of loneliness had not been the end of his story. They were only a chapter. The woman found that her journey, full of hardship and uncertainty, had led her to a place where she could finally rest and begin again. Together, they did not just survive.